Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
Chantelle Botha has noticed a marked increase in the success of those who start learning to love themselves. She discusses this in episode 34.
So what the session is I call it the Way Taster Session. It is a taster session. You're going to spend 30 minutes with me online. So it's a taster session to just open your mind in terms of where you can go with me or with yourself, right? Now, Way stands for who are you? And if you remember in my story, a big part of deciding what your goals are is first deciding who you are. So we spend a little bit of time going through a questionnaire, understanding who you are, what your values are, what's important to you, and we have a glimpse at where you're driving towards. What you'll get out of this session is you're going to get a personalized elevator pitch crafted for you.
The Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. The Healing Through Love podcast with host Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson would love to acknowledge Global Glamping Charities Incorporated for generously supporting this podcast. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all of its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org.
Hello and welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast. I'm your host, Sharlene Lynch from charlenelynch.com. Healing Through Love is here to help victims and survivors of domestic violence find their way back to living a more fulfilled and meaningful life. We interview experts and survivors who share their stories to offer advice to those who've experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their healing journey. As well as Healing Through Love podcast, we also run Pamper Days here in Adelaide, South Australia, for survivors of family and domestic violence, where local businesses come together and pay it forward with their services and resources and give our survivors a much needed day of indulgence. We are actively looking for people who would like, with similar values, to participate in our upcoming Pamper Day. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome to our guest, Chantelle. Hello. Chantelle has floated from job to job with no clear direction until she hit rock bottom, which forced her to become intentional about creating the life she wanted. It took more than a decade, but she's now living the life of her dreams. She spent 20 years having a PhD in the School of Life, and whilst actively addicted to drugs and single-handedly raising her son. She has since, in 2019, birthed Dragonfly, a coaching consultancy term, and that's what we're here today to talk about. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Sharlene. I'm very well, thank you, and really excited to be on the show today.
It's so great to have your company. And for listeners, we have a great offer for you today. So stay tuned to the end where we're going to be sharing the offer. I'd love it if you're able to share a little of your story.
Sure, Sharlene. So I've never experienced domestic or family abuse per se. I've had little pockets of it here and there, but my story is more a story of I've abused myself. And in so doing, I haven't loved myself. And it's only through this journey of getting back to myself that I've started falling in love with myself. So let me share with you, straight out of school, I started drugging. I thought life was my oyster. I became a drug addict and I fell pregnant very, very quickly. Through that journey, obviously, I quit drugs. I had my baby. I went clean and I started working because suddenly I was thrust into this environment where I had to provide for this child. I was alone. I was raising him alone. His name is Kyle. He's the light of my life. 25 years old today, towers over his mom. But the point is, I had to provide for him. And all of the career decisions I made were all about money. They were never about purpose. They were never about satisfaction. It was all about chasing money. And money is important, right? But money is not the be all and end all if you're living a life of deep unfulfillment. And what happened over the years is because I was so deeply unfulfilled, I started drugging again just after I turned 30. And you spoke in your introduction about my rock bottom. I must share with you my rock bottom. My rock bottom was the day that my 13-year-old son came to me. He found my drugs in my cupboard and he said to me, "Mom, what's this? What's going on? What are you doing?" Sharlene, it was the lowest point in my life. I have never felt such shame, such humiliation, such deep disappointment in myself. I never, ever, ever wanted to let him down so badly again. And that for me was my rock bottom. I started putting my life back together. I started coming clean. But what they often don't tell you in this journey, and I say this to my clients all the time, the day that you make the decision to change your life for the better, very often things get worse before they start getting better. And of course, all my bad decisions have caught up with me. We went through a stage, we lost everything. We lost the house, we lost the car, we lost our furniture, we lost absolutely everything as I was cleaning up. And I was having a huge pity party with my dad one day. He was my biggest emotional support at the time. And I said to him, "Dad, why me? You know, what more kind of thing?" And my whole narrative was, why me? And he said to me, "Sean, stop asking why you and start asking what next." Now, Sharlene, those were the last words that my dad ever spoke to me. He passed away shortly after that from a massive heart attack. Just kind of compounded everything that I was going through in my life. But here's the thing, I took those words to heart. This was in 2011. And I used those words to claw myself out of the situation that I found myself in, to build my life up again. But I also used those words to start a mindset journey, to start a journey back to who I am. And I kept asking myself, what next, Sean? What next? What next? Started asking myself the big questions. Who are you? What do you want to do with your life? I had to face reality. By this time, my son was in his mid-teens. He was about to fly the coop, as it was. And I started thinking, everything I've done for the last nearly 20 years from a career perspective has been to raise this lad. And now he's going to fly the coop. What do I want? What do I want to do with the rest of my life? And in this journey, like you said in your intro, it took me about 10 years, right? But I became aware of my purpose. Now, I believe my purpose in this world is to inspire people, to empower people, to lead people on a journey to find their purpose like I found mine. And in so doing, I learned to love myself. So that's my story.
Wow, what a transition. And listeners, you know, wherever you are on your journey, just take heart that there is a silver lining, that other change is possible, and it really only needs to be one tiny thing at a time. So if it all feels like you're sitting in a quagmire, it's just one thing you need to change, just one thing, so that you can keep moving forward and having your eye on the prize, on the bigger vision of what you want your life to look like. So, yeah, now your gifting that you're going to be talking about in a moment is relevant to people who are looking at, going back into employment or are in employment and looking for another job. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But before we get there, I'd really love you to share with us, what is this beautiful mix that you've got of life coaching and also business coaching in together? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Sharlene, I've got an expression: life is career and career is life. Through my own personal journey, I've seen that when you're deeply dissatisfied in your career, in the work that you do, your life doesn't add up. And the life decisions that you make have a huge impact on your loved ones. So really what I do is I started out as a career coach, and before long, I started adding life and business elements. Effectively, what I work to 5 principles, foundation of which is always mindset. We have to start with mindset. You know the old adage, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're 100% correct. So we've got to reframe that mindset. We've got to start with that mindset, move that mindset like I did from a victim mindset into an empowered, I can do this kind of mindset, right? Once we've sorted mindset, and we dip in and out of mindset as we go, we need to look at clarity. What is your vision? Do you know the statistics are that 90%, up to 90% of people don't actually achieve their dreams simply because they don't have clarity? So we've got to become really clear. Where are you going? Are you looking for a new job? Are you looking for a promotion? Do you want to start a business? What do you want to do, right? Get really clear about that. Principle number 3, resources. What do you have? What do you need? And again, this comes back to the question that I ask myself, what next? Where am I right now? Where am I going? And how am I going to get there, right? What are the resources that I need? Number 4, strategy. What's your plan? How are you going to craft this journey? Are you going to ask your boss for a promotion, or are you going to go and find another job? What are you going to do about the situation you find yourself in? And lastly, engagement. I'm an absolutely passionate networker, and I truly believe that life is not meant to be lived as an island. Whatever you're doing, you're going to need to do with the support of other people. Whether you're pitching yourself to your boss for that promotion, whether you're pitching yourself in the job market, whether you're pitching your business for new clients, we're always pitching. So many of my clients come to me and say, but I'm not a salesperson. And I say, well, you've got to learn to make peace with that. Because even if you're a parent, you've got to sell the concept of make your bed, lad. So those are the principles that I coach towards. And through that journey, we very often find, or in most cases, we find that people discover their purpose. People are given permission to dream again. I think it's so incredibly sad that we live in a society where we buy into societal paradigms and the expectations that society thrusts upon us. And I really want to show people you can dream, but it all comes down to, what do you want?
Absolutely. We do not have a change issue. We have a desire issue. And I think it's been dampened thanks to the spicy cough. We, and it's time to clear the lens of what, take your glasses off, give them a wipe, have a look. There is so much hope on the horizon, so many opportunities. And, crisis does actually create opportunities. So if we're in a global crisis right now, then we are rife with opportunities. I love everything that you've got to say here, Chantelle. I'd love to know, when you're not working as a coach and a life coach, what is it that you love to do?
So I must tell you, I for years have loved Suzuki Jimneys. I don't know if you guys must have them in Australia. It's a tiny little 4x4. It's a really, really small
like a little
4x4.
Jeep,
Yeah.
like a car.
Yes, like a Jeep. But yeah, exactly. So it's like a Jeep, but it goes anywhere. This thing is a beast. Now, I grew up on a farm. I am outdoorsy by nature. This car was my dream car for about 20 years. And I finally bought her in, I think, 2018. So I do a lot of 4x4ing. I do a lot of off the beaten track. In South Africa, we've got some amazing pieces of country that we can kind of get into the back and beyond. So 4x4ing is my first love. Second to that, I do a lot of running, walking in nature as far as I can. I love getting out into the bush. And I think, again, part of my journey, this is that reconnecting with self. In society, we've got all this barrage of noise coming at us, and it's social media and emails and phones and TV. And I love just shutting that off and just breathing nature. So that's my first love, nature, travel.
I love it. We do need that level of connection, and especially that level of grounding, so that we can energetically, because we're all energy in motion, so that we can energetically ground ourselves, so that we can be the pillar of energy that we need to be. We need to still find those quiet times to do the white space, the green space, and enjoy some quiet quality time by yourselves. How else are we going to get the downloads that we need so that we can move forward? So true. I love it. I love it. So now you've been a business coach and a life coach for some time now. And one of your favorite products is the one that we were talking about before the show, which, listeners, you'll be happy to know we're offering today, which, thank you so much, as a special bonus. And can you walk us through this amazing product?
100%. So what the session is I call it the way taster session. It is a taster session. You're going to spend 30 minutes with me online. So it's a taster session to just open your mind in terms of where you can go with me or with yourself, right? Now, way stands for who are you? And if you remember in my story, a big part of deciding what your goals are is first deciding who you are. So we spend a little bit of time going through a questionnaire, understanding who you are, what your values are, what's important to you, and we have a glimpse at where you're driving towards. What you'll get out of this session is you're going to get a personalized elevator pitch crafted for you. Now, if you know anything about an elevator pitch is something that you use to introduce yourself. So whether you're in the job market and you're introducing yourself to potential hiring companies, whether you are applying for a promotion, you might need to remind your boss who you are, what your value is, and what you're worth, right? Or whether you're just a business person and you want to create this impactful introduction for when you have networking sessions. It is vital for us all, irrespective of station, to have an elevator pitch at the ready. You never know when you're going to need it. So I guarantee you're going to walk away with an impactful, very personal elevator pitch at the end of this session.
Love it. And so, listeners, today you've got a very rare opportunity to have access to this process for free. So the link will be in the show notes and also in the description. And connect and have a conversation, and you'll see that she's got both the skill set to help you in the business perspective, but also business is personal. That's where we need to start. So, if you're not reaching the heights that you want to reach, if you're just feeling disconnected and feeling discontent with where you are and what you want to do, if you're not feeling like as if you can dream the big dream, then we really need to have a look at underneath the layers of the onion and have a look at what's the story that's holding you in this level so that you can move forward. And that's exactly what she does through the process. So that's for free. And normally it's well over $70 Australian to have the 30-minute session and dive in deep. You'll walk away with your elevator pitch. And that's exciting. And that's something that we all need, whether you're going to be networking or looking for another job or getting your boss to give you a promotion. I'm wondering, can we use this technique to get the kids to make the bed?
I think we could certainly try, right? You raise an interesting point. I come back to what I said earlier. All of life is about pitching, and all of life is about selling your idea to someone. So if you want the kids to make the bed, you've got to ask yourself what's in it for them. And that's just a trick there for all of your listeners. Whatever you're selling, whatever idea you're selling, you decide what's in it for the other person. You address that and you've got to win.
Absolutely. If you are not solving other people's problems, you don't have a business. You don't even have a job if you're not solving your boss's problem. So you're coming in from the perspective of what is the problem that you solve and what's in it for them. Then remember, because it's not about you, it's about them. And when we come in with that attitude, then we're there from that servant's heart. And it really does change the frequency of the conversation as well. And you get the outcomes you want, because if you help, Zig Ziglar said it best, if you help enough other people get what they want, you get what you want. I love it. That's fantastic.
Love that.
I do. I love it. I'm a bit of a Ziglar fan. That indicates my age, like 56. Clearly, I've been around for a while, and I'm a bit of a Zig Ziglar fan. Grew up on him.
You know what? My son is a Zig Ziglar fan. All 25 years of him, he preaches, lives, breathes this man. So, yeah.
I feel younger. I feel younger. I feel younger. Now, if he likes Bob Proctor, then that's it. I really feel much younger. That would be amazing. I love it. So what's next for you in your journey now that you've transitioned, you've moved away from the levels of addiction, your son is healthy, he is prospering, you're prospering, business is great, you've reached out, you've now got a global network. What's next for you?
So after a couple of years of coaching one-on-one, I am starting to transition into the corporate market this year. My big vision is still to do a TED Talk. I want to do that TED Talk, and I want to get my book published by the end of this year. So those are the big goals that I'm working towards. In the interim, though, I'm working on the corporate market. I believe there's two big challenges that are facing our corporate market globally at the moment. One is disengagement, and this is what we've got with the quiet quitting syndrome. People are just kind of cashing out. And the other problem is the layoffs. Our layoffs are becoming thicker and faster and at more rapid speed than ever before. So from a corporate perspective, I'll go in and I'll do workshops or talks or whatever the case may be in terms of addressing disengagement, but also in terms of shifting mindsets and getting people who are unsatisfied in their jobs to start loving their jobs without the need to move out of their jobs. There is a way to do this. So that's my focus this year.
I love it. I love it. And Chantelle, who is your avatar? Who's your audience? Who's your ideal business to work with? Because they might be listening today. Who would you love to spend quality time with in the corporate space?
So in the corporate space, gosh, you kind of threw me there.
That was not my intention. That was not my intention.
Not at all. You know what? The answer is because it's so broad. I want to work with, so I don't work with a manufacturing niche per se or a industry-wide niche. I want to work with companies who are consciously aware of their people, who are wanting to invest in their people. I think if I had to characterize that kind of company, that would be it. As well as for my individual audience, people who want to go through that change process, who want what's on the other side of change more than the pain of the process. That's my ideal market.
I love it. I love it. And it brings us back to increasing this level of desire that, change comes easy when the desire is increased. So yes. What can we do you think? Like you and I, what can we do to help the rest of the planet increase their desire? If you knew, listeners, what was possible for you, the amount of income that you could earn, the lifestyle you could live, the love that you could have, everything straight out of the picture book. If you really knew that it was all possible and you could have it, would that increase your desire? Because it's true. Chantelle is a living example that it is absolutely possible.
You know what, Sharlene, I come back to an old expression: you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And yes, I believe there's a lot of movement in our world today in terms of what I call an awakening, where people are getting hungry for the bigger picture and seeing the possibilities. But yet, on the converse, there are still so many people who are just absolutely resistant to the idea of change, and we can't force that. No. All we can do is carry on speaking our message, and somewhere, somehow, you're going to hit your rock bottom at some point. I pray it's never as heavy as my rock bottom, but all of us have a different rock bottom, and each of us is going to go through our own journey. And when that rock bottom comes, and it's different for everyone, that's when that desire is going to kick in. And that's when that hunger for the bigger picture and the ultimate purpose is going to kick in.
Yes, and I wish for none of you to have a rock bottom. I wish for you to magically get turned on and decide there's another way. That would be amazing. I'd love that. And you hit the nail on the head when you talked about living in a frequency of being the victim. Now, as a survivor of domestic violence, I have to say that I did own some part of that journey, and it wasn't until I decided to change my language and change my life and step up and decide to be the victor rather than the victim, and not things weren't done to me, they were done for me. Again, changing the language and changing the perspective, that it gave me the empowerment to make other choices and to move forward. So, and yet, if someone had this conversation with me while I was still living in victimhood, I might have gone, what do you know? You don't live the life I do. So if any of this is triggering you, then remember, if something triggers, then there's an opportunity for you to have a level of awakening. If it triggers, there's some aspect of it that's true for you. So just keep that in mind when you're listening to this podcast and our other podcast and our beautiful guest, because that means that's something for you to pay attention to.
Absolutely. And following on from that, Sharlene, I had to come to a point in my journey where I had to accept that I had to take 100% responsibility for where I find myself. And yes, our listeners might say, but that's fair, Chantelle. You did this to yourself, right? But there were lots of things that I went through. I was a victim of crime several times in South Africa. I had guns pressed against my head. And I've asked myself that question with regards to the crime. How do I take 100% responsibility for those events? And that's almost another kettle of fish, but it opens up the possibility that, like you said, we are responsible for our language. We are responsible for our choices. We may be not responsible for what happens to us, but we're responsible for processing how we move through it. That's important.
It's so true. It's so true. I love it. Chantelle, I think I could talk to you all day. It's fabulous. Pull up a couch. We'll just make ourselves comfortable. I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. And if you haven't picked it up, Chantelle's from the other side of the world. So yes, equally the initials are SA. So South Africa and South Australia. It's lovely. I think we might be sister cities. That's beautiful.
There you go.
And I love it. And so with her beautiful offering today of this process, for the opportunity to work with her for the 30 minutes and unpack your elevator pitch. And so the links will be above and below. And also I want you to stay tuned because there will be a book. Do you have a title for the book yet, or you've got a concept for the book?
I think I've got the concept for the book, but no title.
Okay.
So let me unpack it just a tweak for you. I'll just give you a teaser, right? My business is called Dragonfly. And the dragonfly in many cultures is symbolic of change, but not just any change in the perspective of self-actualization. So that means internalizing the change you've experienced, asking yourself, who am I and how do I grow through this to become the fullest and most complete version of myself? That's dragonfly symbology. And that's why I called my business Dragonfly. So my book is going to have a lot of parallels and metaphors and a lot of diving into how a dragonfly lives and how we can use that methodology to unpack our dreams.
There is a great movie called Dragonfly. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest. And here in South Australia, we just had at epic swarm proportions dragonflies. Never seen it before in my 56 years, but we had hundreds of thousands of them. It was thick.
Wow, I would love to have seen that.
It was intense. So we had a series of floods here in South Australia, and so that increased the water level and the water catchment. So that meant we had more mosquitoes. And so what do dragonflies eat? But they eat mosquitoes. So yeah, we had it was epic. It was absolutely epic.
Amazing.
But I know, and isn't it fabulous? It just goes to show the circle of life. I love it. Oh, well, we're almost ready to finish today, but I did want to, and we've asked you lots of questions, none of which we prepared you for, but that's okay. She did
more authentic that way.
I love it. Is that moving forward, you're going to look for a TED Talk, so I'm going to be following you to watch that and also the book. But what would be your closing words to our listeners today, bearing in mind that they're all on a different part of a healing journey? Some still involved in process, some out the other side, and some now out healing others, but nonetheless still the healing journey. What would you say to give them some advice?
So my best advice is to try, wherever you are, to spend anywhere between 1 and 5 minutes with yourself, not your mobile, not Netflix. So go out into the garden and sit for 1 to 5 minutes and just sit and get to know yourself. If you want to do this in the mirror, you can, but for some people that's quite intimidating, right? Staring deep into your eyes. But the point is, get to know yourself. You are going to be on this journey with you for the longest period, from your birth to your death. You are the only constant. So you've got to get to know yourself. Ask yourself the big questions. Make peace with yourself, but get to know yourself.
I love that. I love that. And then, maybe you could take it just a little step further, because I'm always asking for more. Then you could consider meditating and see if you can
Love it.
expand that. So if you can sit
Absolutely.
in silence just for a couple of minutes, then really there's not much difference between that and meditation. Just a little bit of
That's
breath
it.
work. But yeah,
And
and
take it one step further and start visualizing the life you want.
absolutely. And because the thoughts become things, and you need to be in a place where you're creating this vision of what your life could look like, and then it simply manifests. That's what everyone's talking about. They're banging on about it. It's because it's true. And
It's
don't you
real.
want a piece of that? I'm sure you do. Well, this has been a wonderful journey to have a conversation with you from the other side of the world. And we also have something very similar in Adelaide, South Australia, as they do in South Africa. And we have in Adelaide, we have brownouts, where we are protecting the infrastructure of our electricity, our distribution system. And we have one suburb turns off, and then that one comes on, then the next suburb turns off. So we call it a rolling brownout. And they have something similar in South Africa as well, but you call it a different name.
We call it load shedding. So we're shedding the load. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. I love it. I love it. It's fabulous to connect with you and find out more about life on your side of the world. And we too, here in South Australia, four-wheel driving is a very, very popular pastime, because we just live 20 minutes to the hills and 20 minutes to the sea. It's just right.
I'm going to have to come visit. Love it.
It's amazing. I did come visit you in South Africa a couple of times. I loved it. I almost didn't come home. It was it was spectacular, from the Table Mountains all the way through. Pretoria took me by surprise. And then out the other side, we stayed in Sin City, Sun City.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but we called it Sin City. And
is.
then went on safari as well, which was, wow, just breathtaking to see just the size. So in Australia, we've got land that size too, but it was just even more epic. Yeah. And the size of your animals is pretty epic too.
That's it. And it's a very diverse country. We've got mountains, we've got ocean, we've got safari, we've got desert, we've got kind of everything. There's a little bit of everything here. So
it is definitely a beautiful country. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time and effort and energy today. It's beautiful to connect with you today, and we look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, Sharlene. Go well. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at htlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.